Mars could look like this, allowing humans to comfortably live on the planet.
While Elon Musk has done nothing but reaffirm his commitment to its possibility, ceaselessly stating his desire to colonize the Red Planet.
Elon Musk is on a mission to change humanity forever. While most of us know him as the guy behind Tesla and SpaceX, he's got a lot more up his sleeve. His latest idea might just be his boldest yet. He's building a spaceship called Starship, and it's designed to make Mars our next home.
First spaceships containing human passengers head toward Mars. In a historic moment, the first human steps on Mars's soil.
But can he actually pull this off? Stay tuned to find out as I reveal Elon Musk's crazy plan to colonize Mars. The Martian city. While many of us grew up dreaming about space travel, Elon Musk is the one turning that dream into reality. He's serious about making humans an interplanetary species. At SpaceX, his team is pulling out all the stops to send 1 million people to Mars in the next 20 years. Whether that will actually happen is still a big question. But when it comes to getting to Mars, Musk already has a plan. And that involves Starship, the most powerful rocket ever built in the history of space travel. And I'll get to that in a bit, but first, let's try to solve the billion-dollar question here. Why is Elon Musk so bent on colonizing Mars? Well, believe it or not, apart from wanting to be the brain behind making humans an interplanetary species, Mr. Musk actually has a genuine concern. He worries that Earth might not be able to sustain life forever, and our best shot at survival is to live on multiple planets. As wild as that sounds, Musk might actually be onto something. That is why his team over at SpaceX is currently working on developing all sorts of interesting things, like dome habitats and spacesuits. And while NASA is still busy researching Mars, Musk has already mapped out plans to have 1 million people living there by 2040. Of course, getting to Mars isn't as simple as buying a ticket. Here's how he wants it all to go. By 2030, the first 100 humans will take off for Mars. By 2040, Mr. Musk predicts there will be at least 1 million of us on the Red Planet. And by 2050, he imagines a thriving, self-sustaining colony on Mars with its own independent government. Ambitious, that word might not be big enough to capture just how far Musk is aiming. It seems rather scary if you ask me, being among the first humans to step foot on a planet that happens to be 4.5 billion years old. But out of all the planets, why Mars? Well, one of the most obvious reasons is that humans won't burn on Mars because it's not too close to the sun, but still close enough to get decent sunlight. Not to mention, the day is incredibly close to that of Earth, so a normal year on the Red Planet wouldn't be too different from what it is right now. Also, gravity. Musk obviously doesn't want to colonize a planet we can't even walk on, right? If that were the case, it'll just take one leap, and you'd be a goner just floating into endless space. But on Mars, gravity is only 38% less than that of Earth. That might sound weird, but think about it. Being lighter could actually be pretty cool. It's like having superpowers. You'd be able to move extremely heavy objects with ease, making it efficient to set up an entire colony. Plus, the deeper you study Elon's visionary plan, the more it makes sense. Like the atmosphere, for example, Mars has CO2, nitrogen, argon, and traces of some other elements. And if you were able to somehow compress all that, you could actually grow plants. But of course, there's a catch: the temperature. Even though the planet gets a decent bit of sunlight, it's still too cold for any sort of life or vegetation. Musk thinks there's enough CO2 trapped in the ice caps to help warm things up, but melting that ice is another big challenge. And that brings me to the billionaire's next crazy idea: nuking Mars to warm it up. I'm not making this up, people. Elon actually wants to detonate nukes over Mars's poles to release all that trapped CO2 in a bid to warm the planet. And while that makes a lot of sense theoretically, I'm not sure how I feel about nuking a planet. A lot of people feel the same way. Some scientists have even called Musk out, questioning whether he can just decide to blow up bombs on another planet. But hey, that's a debate for another day. Right now, the real question is Musk serious about this? And honestly, it seems like he is. Apparently, he has everything sorted. He knows how to get there, how to transport all the supplies, as well as set up a colony. But that still doesn't solve the entire equation. How do you warm up a planet so that it can become fertile? So far, nukes seem to be his best idea. And let's be real, heating up an entire planet isn't going to happen with your regular heaters. If there's another way to do it, we haven't heard about it yet. Trust me, I've looked into this. And that leads us to the next terrible thing. A nuclear winter. Quick history lesson, folks. Remember when the dinosaurs were wiped out by that giant asteroid? If not, here's the short version. The impact kicked up so much debris that it blocked out the sun, causing temperatures to plummet. And guess what? Scientists think this nuclear winter finished off any dinosaurs that survived the initial impact. So, what's this got to do with Elon Musk and his plan to colonize Mars? Well, here's the thing. If Musk were to go through with his plan to nuke Mars, it could end up backfiring. And when I say backfiring, I mean it would turn us from a potential multiplanetary species to a no-planetary species in no time. Here's how. All that debris from the explosions could end up floating around in space, getting caught up by gravity in our solar system. If that debris blocked out the sun again, we could end up in another nuclear winter right here on Earth. And let's be honest, that wouldn't end well. The entire food chain could collapse. And I hate to say it, but we'd probably end up starving. Just imagine that for a second. For 2 long years after the Chicxulub asteroid hit Earth, our planet was nothing but a dark and merciless extinction ground. So, worst case scenario, we could all starve to extinction. But surely Elon knows this, right? At least, we can hope so. Here's to hoping this megalomaniac comes up with a better plan in the next decade, because the idea of nuking Mars, not a fan. That said, despite all the criticism, you have to admit Elon is making some serious progress in space travel. I mean, just look at the stunning Starship. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. The holy grail of rocketry, the most powerful launch vehicle ever built. This ultimate engineering masterpiece can carry 150 metric tons of fully reusable and 250 metric tons of expendable fuel. For those who might not know, the Starship is made up of 2 main parts. We have the SpaceX Starship spacecraft that's actually going to be transporting all the astronauts, and then the star of the show, the Super Heavy rocket. This is the part that will get humans to Mars in just 6 months. And to put that into perspective, that's 140 million miles covered in just half a year. Not to mention, the Starship is an absolute behemoth, standing tall with a height of 121 meters and a diameter of 9 meters. And you've got to hand it to the team, it looks super sleek and futuristic. But seriously, this thing is what makes it all happen, both literally and figuratively. If it wasn't for this machine, Elon's plan to colonize the Red Planet would still just be a daydream. Oh, and another thing about the heavy rocket. It's going to be the first stage of the Starship. After it launches astronauts toward Mars, it will come back down, re-enter Earth's atmosphere, and land right where it started. And that is what basically makes this mission sustainable. Think about it. If SpaceX had to build a new rocket for every trip, even someone like Elon Musk would run out of money eventually. But by reusing the same rocket, the Mars mission actually makes sense. Here's what it looks like. It's hard to know exactly when this is all going to happen, but either way, it's super exciting to see how SpaceX has everything planned out. So let's start with the first stage, which is pretty simple. The first 100 people are all aboard the Starship, ready for liftoff. The heavy rocket will launch the Starship towards Mars, then detach and return to Earth. From there, it's 6 long months of space travel for those 100 people, heading into the unknown to be the first humans to step onto a new planet. The Starship will then head back to Earth, but instead of landing, it'll stay in orbit, refueled by tankers. Each of them will get refueled in the 3rd stage of the mission, preparing to head back to Mars in the 4th stage. And in case you're wondering how the ships are going to return from Mars, well, that's when those natural resources are going to come to use. This is the 5th stage of the mission, where the Starship refuels on Mars so it can make the journey back to Earth. And the final stage, the last stage, is a direct trip back from Mars to Earth. It sounds complex, but even with the Starship's ability to carry a lot of fuel, you just can't make a spacecraft big enough to go to Mars and come back in one trip. Even though it's broken down into 6 stages, the amount of planning and work behind it all is huge. But here's a thought. What if these people aren't just going to Mars to start a colony? What if there's something else going on? Something we can't even imagine because, we're the commoners. Does Elon know something we don't? I'm not sure if you've ever watched Elon's interviews or not, but whenever someone asks Musk why it's important to start life on Mars, his reply is always the same. That's the best way to avoid extinction. And that makes you wonder, what extinction is he talking about exactly? As far as we know, scientists aren't predicting anything major that could wipe out humanity anytime soon. But then again, these scientists aren't exactly billionaires with access to some of the craziest tech ever. Take Elon, for instance. He's been investing in AI for years, saying it helps him stay ahead of the curve. And what's really wild is that he's even called AI the human equivalent of summoning the devil, because it can do so much with so little. So, does Elon know something we don't? What does the future hold for us? Are we talking about a nuclear war, an asteroid hitting Earth, an economic collapse, or maybe something else entirely? Given the urgency and the lengths Musk is going to make Mars livable, it makes you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes. Could he have access to some super advanced AI that's not available to the public, predicting some kind of impending disaster? I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. But regardless of the reason, if Elon actually pulls this off, maybe in the next decade or so, we'll actually see humans living on Mars. Who's going to be the authority? This is a question that keeps me up at night. I mean, we're talking about a whole new planet here. Well, okay, not new, since Mars is about 4.5 billion years old. But still, when it comes to the Mars mission, it's the first time the human species will step foot on a planet other than Earth. So, who's going to be in charge up there? Because at the end of the day, it's a one-way trip, and Musk has complete control over who gets to go or even come back. Is it just me, or does this raise some serious questions about governance and authority? Of course, things could always turn south for the billionaire here back on Earth. But what about all those humans on Mars? How are they going to run things? Or who's going to be making all the decisions? From what I know so far, Musk is making sure only the most qualified and brilliant humans get a ticket to board the Starship. But could it be that he has some confidants who'll just be following his orders when it comes to setting up on the Red Planet? And I don't want to say this, but that's how all the stories and movies go. A crazy billionaire takes over the world, and in this case, the world happens to be Mars. Is it possible that all this is just an attempt to create a world of his own, where he's the only authority? Well, even though I know this thought is just another wild conspiracy, a lot of famous personalities believe Elon is onto something shady here. But who knows? Maybe he's just planning to set up a new version of his X platform on Mars. Or maybe this is his way of building a legacy with a bit of a villainous twist. In simpler words, his legacy will be the ruling class on Mars, Some conspiracy theorists think Musk is playing the long game, working smarter, not harder. Instead of trying to take over this planet, they believe he's starting fresh on a new one. Now, what I'm about to say might sound absurd, but here's the thing. Nobody really knows if it's true or not. According to some pretty big media outlets, Elon Musk is already storing his sperm to populate Mars once humans land, and the first baby born on Mars will be a sovereign citizen of that planet, or in other words, the ruling class of the Red Planet. I know what you're thinking. This has to be one of the wildest conspiracy theories ever, but if these reports about Musk sending his sperm to Mars are actually correct, this could spark a huge debate. And rightly so. We just keep coming back to that one question, don't we? Who's going to decide everything? Or who's going to be the final authority? There's bound to be opposition, especially when you're on an entirely new planet with life being absolutely nothing like that on Earth. But still, the idea that Musk could be laying down the foundation for his own legacy on Mars can't be completely ignored. At the same time, I do think it's quite far-fetched, considering how he'll probably live in the history books forever provided he is able to colonize Mars, because that in itself is a huge feat no one has ever thought of doing, and Musk already has the blueprint for it. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just another conspiracy theory, and as things develop, we'll probably get a clearer picture of what the exact business model will be like on the Red Planet. For now, though, there's no need to panic. Musk hasn't exactly confirmed anything about fathering the first Martian baby. Still, I think the question of authority will always linger, and maybe it's best to leave that debate aside as humanity makes this monumental leap toward the stars. Sure, Musk has had his share of rough days, but there's no denying the boldness of his mission. He's one of the most ambitious minds of our time, and let's be honest, seeing humans become a multi-planetary species is something we all want to witness in our lifetime. Imagine being born on Mars and 6 years later finding out that Earth has breathable air, beaches, forests, and amusement parks. And guess what? Going back isn't an option because of the gravitational difference. That's like a cosmic-level nightmare. But setting all that aside, what if everything works out perfectly? And then a decade later, we find out nobody survived. Will Musk be responsible for the million souls trapped on Mars? There's a reason why I'm using the word trapped here. Despite Elon's claims of the Red Planet being habitable, astronomers and researchers have deemed Mars as unlivable. And that's just the atmosphere we're talking about. Just imagine the shock humans would experience from switching planets. 1 million humans on Mars sounds more like 1 million major depressive disorders within the first 12 months. No sun, no sky, nothing green, terrible food, and an overwhelming desire to come back home. That is very much a possibility, because there's no way you can terraform a planet to be like Earth. At best, life on Mars will be lived in enclosures, or even underground for that matter. Apart from nuking the planet, there's no way to compress or heat up the Red Planet to make it fertile or livable. And what I'm about to tell you next is going to ring some major alarm bells. Whenever a scientist or astronomer is asked what a dying Earth might look like, they just have one answer: Mars. It's possible Mars may have been habitable a couple of billion years back, but right now, it's nothing but a barren wasteland. Believe it or not, there's even a period during its cycle when certain areas of the planet undergo intense radiation. Also, did someone not tell Musk about the dust on Mars? It's nothing like the irritating dust we have here on Earth. I mean, the most that happens is we'll get allergies or things get dirty. But on Mars, the dust particles are extremely sharp and rigid, and the wear and tear they'll have on mankind is going to be much worse. Not to mention how there's literally no liquid water to wash it off either. And in case you're wondering why that is, it's because of the lack of friction on Mars. Or in other words, there's not enough friction to round off the edges of the particles. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. There's probably a million different ways to die on Mars, and if someone is actually crazy enough to withstand the drastic change, they'll have to keep their eyes open for the next potential thing that might kill them. But yeah, coming back to the original point, if instead a mass extinction on Earth, what if it happened on Mars? What if all the people Elon sent to the Red Planet ceased to exist overnight? I'm sure he'll have them sign waivers and stuff, but apart from that, I don't see how this is a good idea. And unless Musk volunteers himself to be one of the first humans to go on Mars, all of this seems pretty shady. If he's so convinced of humans being able to survive on a different planet, why doesn't he want to be the one of the first to go? Or how about no humans go? No, I'm not talking about sending dogs, monkeys, or apes. Don't even get me started on how cruel that is. But why not just send robots? Even if you don't know Elon Musk, you surely know how huge of an advocate he is when it comes to AI and robots. Like, I do remember, he said AI is far more dangerous than any other thing on the planet, but still, he's the brains behind self-driving cars that are getting better with each passing day. Why doesn't he just build an army of advanced robots who can set up base on Mars before the first humans go?
These robots can search for signs of life, like microorganisms, by looking for certain chemicals or patterns in the soil or rocks.
It seems like the more logical thing to do, because for now, all we have is our theories and estimates. There's nothing concrete about how things will actually be on the Red Planet. We have science and everything, but what about psychology? Mars is about the half size of Earth, and even then, sometimes the Earth can seem like a really lonely place. So just imagine how it would feel being among the first humans on an entire planet. The silence would be deafening. All in all, no matter how advanced you make Mars, humans are going to get homesick and suffer psychologically. And that makes me wonder, why hasn't Elon thought of robots yet? Is he worried about something? Or are all the different conspiracy theories about his crazy ulterior motives actually right? Because, unlike humans, robots could actually pull this off. They could work endless hours and don't even need anything to survive. And just hook them up with a nice battery pack, and you have an entire army of brainless workers struggling day and night to make Mars habitable. Plus, another added advantage of this is that no one has to die on Mars. Even before we send the first human to Mars, we'll know whether colonizing the planet is actually possible. So, yeah, I do think it's something that should be considered, but of course, like with everything, the challenges are paramount. Also, there's just something more intriguing about actual humans setting foot on a different planet. So maybe that's what Elon is after. Maybe he is in it for the legacy. Maybe he is a crazy billionaire who wants to be the first man to send humans to another planet. Either way, even though it's extremely difficult to believe, his insane ambition is actually materializing. So keep your eyes open. It's possible we might see the Starship launch with 100 humans before the end of this decade. And that's when the real mission starts. Who knows if it's even going to happen though, considering there's a huge percentage of humans who think living under the ocean is more easier than colonizing Mars. Anyway, that's it from my side, folks. So, what do you think? Can Elon pull off the impossible and actually make humans a multi-planetary species? And what do you think are some of the challenges the first humans might face on Mars? Would you want to go to Mars if you got the chance? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more exciting videos in the future. Thanks for watching and see you next time.